Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Man in American Comics. Start Regenerative Healing Factor. Chapter 41. At first Francis thought that Lu Chuang's variant ability was related to that magical marksmanship. So he wanted Gina to deal with the opponent quickly, and then control the most troublesome Wade. After all, Wade's self-healing ability is really annoying. Even if the head is split with an axe, it can return to normal in a short time. The longer it takes, the worse it is for them. But now, he unexpectedly discovered that Lu Chuang also possesses self-healing ability. And the recovery speed is not weaker than Wade. Two self-healing abilities. Francis's expression remained unchanged, but his heart was filled with turmoil. When did self-healing ability become so popular? Looking at the armed soldiers who were almost killed by Wade, Francis yelled at the beaten Gina, "That guy also has self-healing ability, don't think about killing him, find a way to control that guy." However, Gina, who had tinnitus, only heard a buzzing sound. Thinking that Lu Chuang was mocking herself, Gina was furious. "Shut up, you bug." "Francis, how can I scold people?" Lu Chuang smiled cheerfully. Without interrupting their conversation, he reloaded the shotgun unhurriedly, and then shot at Gina again. All the dense steel balls hit her. The opponent's skin can certainly resist the bullets penetrating, but unable to weaken the accompanying powerful impact. Gina was beaten back again and again, and her ribs were broken after being hit many times, but her sight still hadn't recovered, so she could only accept the beating with her head in her arms. For some reason, Lu Chuang always has the feeling of beating Mei Chaofeng. Although Mei Chaofeng is a bit bald, Lu Chuang fired all the shotguns at once, and looked at Gina, who had broken bones in many parts of her body but hadn't lost her fighting power. He was a little surprised in his heart. This defensive power is too exaggerated. Is it true that all beings are equal before the promised trolls? I have to say that mutants' ability is really abnormal. I didn't feel it when I watched the movie, but when they really appeared in front of my eyes, Lu Chuang realized how terrifying these people are. Just a strengthening body can make the guns and weapons that human beings rely on directly useless, let alone it's those more weird and changeable variant abilities. Lu Chuang sighed, then took out a few grenades and threw them at Gina's feet. Boom! The grenade exploded instantly, and Gina was overturned to the ground, with bloody wounds all over her body. It was obvious that she was not as tough as she imagined, and a few grenades still disintegrated her defense. Gina lay trembling on the ground. Did this guy hide an arsenal? After fighting for so long, there is still so much ammunition. Not dead yet. Isn't this life force too terrifying? Lu Chuang, who possessed the self-healing ability, said so, and took off his jacket leisurely, revealing a C4 bomb tied inside. Yes, he had a C4 bomb strapped to him the whole time. In order to deal with Gina in front of him, Lu Chuang has already preset a whole set of equipment. Among them is the most powerful C4 bomb. He has already seen its power in the frozen warehouse, and this time he deliberately increased the dose of explosives, fearing that it would not kill such a thick-skinned tank. The opponent loses combat power to ensure that the opponent is at the very center of the explosion. For this reason, Lu Chuang gave this scheme, which combined several killing weapons, a particularly famous name. 3,000 for your life. At the moment Gina opened her eyes, which were swollen like walnuts, and managed to recover a sliver of vision. Gina, however, sees a C4 bomb drop in front of her, frantically flashing red. Thack! Boom! Deafening explosions resounded all around. With Gina as the center, the flames soared into the sky, forming a small mushroom. Hearing the explosion, Francis and Wade looked back at the same time. I saw a scorched black corpse fell from the air to the ground, covered with various scars, and died in an extremely tragic manner. From that ferocious face, it can be seen how unwilling he was before birth, and how aggrieved his death was. Then, they saw Lu Chuang approaching, looked at the two of them in surprise and said, "No, it's not resolved yet, I've finished fighting the boss." Hurry up, Wade replied, slashing Francis with katana wildly. "Damn guy, die to me, you're embarrassing me in front of my friends and girlfriends." Francis's expression twisted. "I'm an embarrassment for you to be alive." Bang bang. 2 shots were fired. Francis couldn't spare his hand to block. He was shot in both legs and fell to the ground. "Shiete, give me a little more time and I can solve it, I don't need your help at all." Wade looked at Lu Chuang dissatisfied. You sure? Lu Chuang pointed to Vanessa, who was watching the show in the instrument all the time. After your girlfriend found out about your identity, and saw that you didn't save her but focused on fighting with a man, what do you think will happen? Damn it. Wade threw away two katana decisively, and ran towards Vanessa with brisk steps. Vanessa, wait for me, I'm here to save you. Ignoring Wade, Lu Chuang walked up to Francis and poked him on the head with a pistol. Long time no see, dish soap, how are you doing? Francis looked at Lu Chuang expressionlessly. After Gina died, he knew that the situation was over, and his ability couldn't deal with the two monsters with self-healing ability at all. I didn't expect that you got the same self-healing ability as that idiot, no wonder you all survived. Francis dropped the two axes without any panic or fear on his face. He has already lost his nerve endings, and he is not afraid of the threat of death at all. To be honest, I am quite envious of you guys. I was a patient of the Research Institute myself. Unfortunately, my awakening mutant ability is not very powerful. It just enhanced my reaction ability and my physical fitness. Although I don't feel any pain, but my wounds don't self-heal instantly. Francis grinned like a victor. You should be grateful to me. I let you obtain this powerful ability. The self-healing factor in your body can repair all injuries. This is the ability that many people dream of. Screw your shit. Lu Chuang slammed down the butt of the gun directly, and said fiercely, I, Lu Chuang, can be as strong as I am today, never relying on external force, only relying on my own efforts and ability. Francis, have some face. Some time ago I saw that you were still an ordinary person. Where did you come from for your hard work and ability? But if the patient goes to become a doctor, you can also play. Lu Chuang recalled that Francis was only the manager of the perverted Research Institute, not the actual controller of the Research Institute, so he couldn't help asking curiously, since he is not the founder of the Research Institute, who is the person behind the Research Institute? Hehe, do you think I'll tell you? I think you will. Lu Chuang looked at Francis and thought about it. I don't feel any pain, right? It's okay, I have plenty of solutions. For example, put you in a completely closed coffin, and then bury you in the deepest soil, so that you are completely isolated from the outside world. There is no light, no sound, and you can't even feel the passage of time. There are only endless things around you. Darkness and silence. It is said that no one can last 5 days with this method, and they all went crazy in the end. If it's more troublesome, I'll find a mutant who can repair your nerve endings, and ask him to repair your nerve endings. Then you can do whatever you want. First, I will ask you to chop a 360-degree fork in the air. The more Lu Chuang talked, the more excited he was. At the end, he rubbed his palms together, as if eager to try. 360 splits. Francis's eyelids twitched a few times. Is this something humans can think of? The threat did work for Francis, though. He felt that if he didn't say anything, with Lu Chuang's character, he would definitely do this kind of thing, and maybe there would be even more vicious things waiting for him. I only know that I work for a company named Essex, and I am responsible for managing the operations of several Research Institute branches. As for the higher-level managers of the company, I don't know. Francis said, very bachelor. Anyway, he only works for money, and has no so-called loyalty to the people above him. Essex Company. Lu Chuang pondered. If he remembers correctly, this company has appeared several times in mutant movies. It seems to be a company that likes to collect mutant genes. Among them, they have collected Wolverine Logan's genes, and the Wolverine clone in Wolverine 3 Inches as the product they created. Generally speaking, it can be regarded as a villain organization. So, the story here involves mutant. Lu Chuang didn't care. After all, he is not a mutant. His abilities are all derived from super high school level talents, and have nothing to do with the mutant ability at all. By the way, the serum you injected me back then needed adrenaline as a catalyst, right? Francis nodded silently. Lu Chuang was thoughtful. It seemed that the serum had no effect on him as a time traveler. He didn't know how much adrenaline he secreted during bullet time. If the serum was effective, his genes would have mutated long ago. At this time, Wade came over with his girlfriend Vanessa. Seeing that Wade had taken off his mask, Lu Chuang knew that he had confessed to Vanessa, and now he probably wanted Francis to restore his disfigured face. Definitely, Lu Chuang knew this was impossible. Lu Chuang threw Francis over. I'll leave this guy to you. I'll go pick up the equipment that exploded. I'm running out of ammunition, so I need to replenish it. Seeing that there are still several grenades and magazines hanging on Lu Chuang's body, Wade is a bit lost. What do you call running out? 10 minutes later, Lu Chuang ran back dragging a lot of guns and ammunition, and he also found a motorcycle by the way. He then saw Francis's body lying on the ground with a bloody hole in his forehead. Nailed it. Fuck, this guy can't fix my face. Wade yelled angrily. As if he didn't feel satisfied, he raised his foot and kicked Francis's body. During this period of time, he was frantically looking for Francis, just to heal his face, but after working so hard for so long, he got a sentence that he could not save and wait for death. In his temper, he directly shot Francis. Lu Chuang patted him on the shoulder and comforted him. Think about it, although you are a little ugly, at least you can't die from cancer. Unlike me, you are neither ugly nor have cancer. What troubles nothing. Wade. Vanessa. Vanessa glanced at Wade. Sure enough, none of the men around you are normal. After Francis died, Lu Chuang and Wade left the deck respectively. Wade called the Indian brother again, and couldn't wait to take Vanessa home. Due to the newly harvested batch of firearms and ammunition, Lu Chuang did not take a taxi back with Wade, but drove all the way back to his apartment on the motorcycle he had just picked up, and began to study a new transformation plan. After today's battle, Lu Chuang found that his plan of killing you for 3,000 was not strong enough, and in the end he had to use the C4 bomb to completely kill Gina. You must know that in his plan preset, the level 1 section of the shotgun should break through Gina's defense, and then use the grenade to kill the opponent. As a result, a shotgun with such great lethality could not break through the opponent's physical defense at all. Lu Chuang has a new understanding of these abilities. Therefore, he must quickly increase the damage limit of the plan, at least by the bazooka. Someone once said that truth is only within the range of a cannon. Lu Chuang has always been a reasonable person, and he hopes that his enemies can understand his truth. I came to my senses, and I realized that I could contribute more to the world than making weapons, so I decided to close Stark Industries' weapons division, effective immediately, until I found new goals for the company and other directions that I felt were right and consistent with the best interests of the nation. On the TV screen of the bar, a man with a signature beard stood on the stage and announced to everyone. This person is the big boss of Stark Industries, Tony Stark. The stock of Stark Industries has plummeted since Tony Stark disappeared, and most people think he died in Afghanistan. As a result, they never expected that Tony Stark would appear in everyone's field of vision again, and in this high-profile press conference, he suddenly announced this amazing decision. As we all know, Stark Industries made its fortune from the arms business. Before Tony Stark came back, Stark Industries' biggest profit was still the arms business, but now that Stark Industries' arms department said it would shut down, it almost directly destroyed more than half of Stark Industry. Everyone was shocked by Tony Stark's decision, especially those stock investors who saw Tony Stark's return and began to grab shares were going crazy. No need to think about it, you can guess that the rooftop must be very lively the next day. The weasel wiped the wine glass in his hand, feeling a little absurd and said, "This Tony Stark must have been played by those terrorists. An arms dealer does not sell arms, so is he planning to switch to selling beer?" Lu Chuang drank the Happy Fat House water and said calmly, maybe he changed his career to blacksmithing. Only he knows that Tony Stark's return means Iron Man is coming. Title triggers. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Great inventor. Completable close black lens bracket. Unlock condition. Defeat Iron Man. Tony Stark's steel battle suit with a high-tech battle suit made by yourself. 0/1. Title awarded. Inventor of super high school level. Without any warning, the game system suddenly popped up new content. Another new unlock task. Lu Chuang was a little surprised. So far, he has only triggered 2 achievement tasks. Each achievement task appears randomly, and there is no time limit, so it depends on luck to trigger the achievement task. And now, it was the 3rd time he had triggered the achievement mission. However, when Lu Chuang saw the content of the achievement task clearly, he almost sprayed the Happy Fat House water on the weasel's face. What the hell? Beat Iron Man Tony Stark in a high-tech battle suit built by yourself? Are you sure you are not kidding me? Lu Chuang was dumbfounded, This was the first time he saw that the achievement task of the game system was directly related to someone. Even more outrageous is the task content. To know who Tony Stark is, that's the Kryptonian of the Marvel Universe. He roughly estimated that the cost of a pair of steel armor for Tony Stark is at least hundreds of millions of USD, and the price of missile weapons thrown at random is in the millions. This is not a battle, it is clearly burning money. As one of the top film money players in the Marvel world, Tony Stark has dozens of sets of steel armor alone. Others play with figurines, but he plays with steel armor, and the effect of steel armor becomes more powerful as time goes on. In the later stage, you can wear Hulk armor and directly hit Hulk. How to fight this? Besides, he doesn't know how to make any high-tech battle suits. With his level of knowledge, he could at most make a suit of armor that he could barely wear, but compared to Tony Stark's steel armor that could fly, launch missiles, and fire energy cannons, it was simply a world of difference. And what kind of material is used for Tony Stark's steel armor, all of which are top-notch aviation technology materials, and the defense is definitely tough. Hard resistance to missiles is trivial, so it's not like Gina's mutant can compare then. And if Lu Chuang can make the most powerful armor weapon, it is estimated that only his brain will collapse. But the problem is, he can't use his brains to fight Tony Stark's steel battle suit. He was afraid that Tony Stark would die laughing on the spot. For the first two achievement tasks, it is possible to see the feasibility of completing them. As for this task, Lu Chuang can't think of any way to complete it for the time being. Among other things, with Tony Stark's identity and background, Lu Chuang really can't do it casually. Fortunately, the achievement task is not a mandatory or time-limited task, and he has a lot of time to slowly figure out a solution. Compared with this, Lu Chuang has a problem that needs to be solved more. That means he doesn't have enough money. After buying a large amount of firearms and ammunition before, Lu Chuang's assets are running out now, only enough to maintain his normal life, but it is obviously impossible for him to buy more powerful weapons. Lu Chuang looked at Weasel. Is there any high-paying commission recently, and I am in urgent need of money. He swells. He has a super high school level sharpshooter, and now he can completely accept higher level commissions. For the weird arc ballistic technique, it is perfect for assassination, just like the perfect assassination a few days ago. No living person could find his trace during the whole process. Weasel nodded. Now that he has a general understanding of Lu Chuang's strength, he didn't say anything about the difficulty. Yes, but those high-paying commissions are generally not here, such as the extermination of Mexican drug cartels. The location is Harry's in Mexico. In Colorado, the salary is probably more than $5 million. Not from other countries, preferably within New York. Lu Chuang resolutely vetoed it. He did not intend to travel so far to complete the commission. In New York, there are a few high-paying commissions. Weasel seemed to think of something, and said, but the highest reward is your high reward, but there is good news. Your reward is now down to $4 million. Lu Chuang was a little surprised. Could it be that the conscience of those gangsters found out? How is it possible? Their consciences have long been eaten by dogs. The Weasel looked like you were joking, and then explained, your reward is high because your identity has not been discovered, and now the reward has been lowered. I guess your accomplice was caught. You mean the Punisher? Lu Chuang frowned. Isn't his accomplice Frank? Yes, what a poor guy. People who provoke gangsters usually end up miserable. If I fell into the hands of those crazy gangsters, I would definitely choose to commit suicide. You can never imagine what happened to those gangsters. How cruel the means will be. Speaking of this, Weasel looked at Lu Chuang worriedly. You have to be careful, maybe your information has already been confessed by the other party. I hope you are not an idiot enough to reveal your address. If you did, I beg you, find a place to move out as soon as possible, and move to Wade's place. Weasel doesn't want the apartment he rented out to be bumped by gangsters who come to him. Who's going to live with me? A frivolous voice came, and Wade, wearing a mask, came over and sat down beside Lu Chuang. I warn you, don't even think about it. No one can disturb my world with Vanessa, except the IRS. Weasel exaggerated. Oh, look who is here, America's good boyfriend Wade Wilson. I thought you would hold Vanessa all the time and wouldn't let go. Lu Chuang was also surprised to see Wade coming. Since Wade and Vanessa met, the long-lost couple wanted to be together every day, and they hardly saw Wade these days. Think about it too. Only the exhausted cow has no damaged fields, but if this cow is fully mechanized, it can be plowing the land all the time. That's what I thought, but there's one thing scarier than the IRS coming to you. What's the matter? I'm out of money. Wade shrugged his shoulders and lay down on the table dejectedly. Are you short of money too? Lu Chuang asked curiously. Definitely. Although Wade became a mercenary earlier than Lu Chuang, his savings is really not much. It should be said that the people of America do not have the habit of saving money, and he has been busy looking for Francis some time ago, so it is impossible to entrust him. Thinking of the increasing expenses of himself and Vanessa recently, Wade said eagerly, quickly introduce me to some new jobs. The best range of activities is in New York, so that I can work in the morning and find Vanessa in the evening. Work. Hearing this, Lu Chuang suddenly had an idea. Wade, here is a commission with several million USD, are you interested? Millions of USD. Wade suddenly became interested, and immediately asked, what is the content of the entrustment? It's as simple as catching a guy and handing him over to the gang to get paid millions of dollars. There is such a good thing. Wade asked impatiently. Who is the target person and where is it in New York? Let me tell you first. If the time is too long or the distance is too far, I am not interested. Vanessa is still waiting. Follow me home. Don't worry, there is no difficulty in this commission, and you also know the target person, and the distance is very close. I know. Who? Lu Chuang drank the happy fat house water in one gulp, showing a bright smile. Let's do it, I won't resist. We agreed in advance that we will pay you 5 or 5 cents. Above the pitch-black sky, gloomy black clouds block the moonlight. The colorful lights of the city in the distance are in stark contrast to the lifeless West Midtown, as if heaven and hell are separated by the Hudson River. Here is the cradle of criminals, the infamous Hell's Kitchen. On a quiet street, several black cadres parked at the corner. A group of Russians led by Vladimir got out of the car, and saw Wesley in a suit and leather shoes standing in front of an iron gate, followed by several black-clothed bodyguards. The cold light in Vladimir's eyes was sharp, and he scanned his surroundings. Where's the damn attacker? Don't worry, since you agreed to our future work assistance, what my employer promised you will naturally be done. Wesley smiled. Immediately afterwards, he nodded to the black-clothed bodyguards, and the black-clothed bodyguards immediately opened the iron door behind them. Crunch. The heavy iron door was pushed open with a light thud, and a faint smell of blood rushed over. The indoor space is very small, surrounded by iron walls, and in the center is a burly man. I saw that his hands and feet were wrapped with iron chains, and his whole body was tied to a small seat. He was covered in scarlet blood as if he had just been fished out of a pool of blood. Judging from his wounds, these bloodstains should not all belong to him. Seeing this man, Wesley couldn't help sighing. This is the famous Punisher. We spent a lot of effort to lure him out and catch him. Even so, we have lost a lot here. With few people, this fighting power is really amazing. But please rest assured, according to our agreement, he is already yours, so we didn't torture him. Vladimir did not reply, but stared hard at Frank in front of him. Before, their Russian Ross gang also sent a large number of people to arrest this guy. As a result, they encountered various obstacles every time they acted, and Frank ran away in the end. Vladimir, no fool, quickly guessed that someone was trying to stop him from capturing Frank. Under pressure, Vladimir finally agreed to Wesley's suggestion, giving up Anatoly's former territory and handing it over to them to take over, while their people fully assisted in the arrest operation. It wasn't long before Vladimir received word that Frank had been caught. Vladimir walked up to Frank and said coldly, "You killed Anatoly." Frank looked up at Vladimir calmly. He recognized the identity of Vladimir, the biggest leader of the Ross gang in Russia. Curling his lips in disdain, Frank definitely knew who the murderer of Anatoly was, but he didn't care about it at all, and he didn't care about taking the blame for himself. He just mocked. "I killed a lot of people, and they were all guilty. Which bastard are you talking about, Anatoly?" Boom. Rage's Vladimir punched through. The veins in Vladimir's neck bulged, and he grabbed Frank's collar. "I know you have another companion, tell me where he is." Frank spat bloody saliva and put on a, "that's it," expression. The result was that Vladimir was beaten up violently, and Frank just didn't snort during the whole process. After beating Frank to a bloody mess, Vladimir snarled, "Tell me who that damned attacker is and what his name is. If you don't, I guarantee you will die a terrible death." Frank opened his swollen and blue eyes, calmly watching Vladimir roaring helplessly. He is a professionally trained soldier, and he is not afraid of any cruel torture. Although he and Lu Chuang have only met once, he just wants to see the anger of these bastards, so naturally he will not reveal the slightest bit information. Frank said hoarsely, "You're not going to find him, ever." Vladimir punched down again. Seeing that Frank was so stubborn, he turned to Wesley angrily. "Tell me, where is the other attacker?" "We're investigating." Wesley pushed his glasses. "In fact, once they find out, they will find someone to silence them directly, and they will definitely not leave this insider to Vladimir. It's just that Vladimir lost such a territory, how could he listen to such useless nonsense?" Vladimir raised his blood-stained palm and grabbed Wesley's shoulder unceremoniously. "If you take my territory, you must send another attacker over, and I want them both to die in my hands." Wesley frowned. "You know, it will take time. After all, the other party can't take the initiative to deliver it to the door." Just then, a Russian came over. Another assailant was found. Someone said that he caught the person offering the reward just when the toilet was convenient, and said that he would personally send it to the door to receive the reward. Wesley. Frank. Half an hour later, the iron door of the room was pushed open. The first person to walk in was a strange man in black and red tights and a red mask. He was holding a rope in his hand, and looking along the end of the rope, he saw a figure tied tightly by the rope and dragged into the room. This person also wore a mask on his head, looking like it was a plastic bag I picked up from a convenience store and put it on. The man in tights, that is, Wade, looked around the room, saw the gangsters in the room, and Frank, who was covered in blood, and said hello enthusiastically. "Hey, are you having a party here? How about adding me?" Vladimir walked forward and looked directly at Wade. "You are the one who completed my bounty. Looking at your villainous appearance, I knew you must be the boss here, right?" Wade grabbed the rope and pulled the figure behind him. With his arms akimbo, he said, "That's right, I brought 4 million, and he is the one who offered the reward." Wesley narrowed his eyes slightly. He was shrewd and quickly noticed something was wrong. He asked, "You said he was the one who was offered a reward, how do you prove it, and how did you find out?" Facing Wesley's questioning, Wade did not panic, but talked eloquently. "This matter has to start with a Mexican chicken wrap. I ate a Mexican chicken wrap on the street today, and it didn't take long before I suddenly felt I had a severe pain in my stomach, so I found a toilet." "Shut up and get to the point." Vladimir interrupted him impatiently. Wade shrugged. "At that time, I saw a man in the toilet, which exactly matched the description on the reward, and then I caught him here." As he spoke, he took off his mask, and this figure was Lu Chuang in disguise. The expressions of Vladimir and Wesley froze instantly. They remembered the description of the other attacker on the bounty, which seemed to be only one simple word. Asian. Looking at Lu Chuang's skin color again, it really fits perfectly. Vladimir's complexion was very bad, and now he seriously suspected that the man who was tied up was a passerby that the man in tights randomly grabbed from the toilet. He said in a bad tone, "I need stronger proof. If I can't prove this guy's identity, I will think you are amusing me, and you will die." "Oh, calm down, I definitely can prove that he is the one on the bounty." "How to prove?" Wesley continued to question. "If this person is fake, he can expose their identities on the spot. If this person is real, he must also be identified as fake. He must not let the real attacker fall into Vladimir's hands." Wade poked Lu Chuang's waist with his fingers, and made a fierce expression on his face. Regardless of whether others could see his face under the mask, he asked sharply, "Quickly tell me, are you the one who put the bounty on?" Quote. Lu Chuang showed panic, and his eyes revealed an expression of disbelief. "You actually discovered this, what a keen observation, what a meticulous judgment." "That's right, I'm the man who was offered a reward of 4 million. If you're smart, let me go. When I reach the reward of 100 million and become Shichibukai, I'll make you my crew." Wade nodded and spread his hands to everyone. "You heard it." Wesley, Vladimir, Frank. Frank thought the wound was painful at first, but now his head hurts even more. When Lu Chuang took off the mask, although he didn't know why the other party put on a fake beard and wore a pair of glasses, he still recognized Lu Chuang's identity at a glance. After seeing that Lu Chuang was really arrested, Frank was surprised. After all, he was too famous, and all criminals knew that his target was criminals, so the group of gangsters could set up a trap to lure him into the trap. But Lu Chuang's situation is completely different from his. The other party originally did not reveal much information. Even if this group of gangsters covered almost the entire New York intelligence network, it would be difficult to find Lu Chuang's traces under such a huge amount of information gap. Frank originally thought that Lu Chuang fell into the hands of a powerful intelligence organization, and was captured by the opponent after a life-and-death struggle. Frank had already imagined all kinds of fierce battle scenes in his mind. But now it seems, this is clearly a self-destruct infantry. He actually blew himself up when he was asked casually. In his many years of interrogation career, it was the first time that Frank saw such an unpretentious prisoner. In less than half a second, he directly refreshed the record of the prisoner telling the information the fastest in his entire interrogation career. Frank took a deep breath, still holding a glimmer of hope in his heart. Although the opponent is a pig teammate, Lu Chuang's identity is still uncertain. After all, the two of them belong to outsiders. Even if they admit it themselves, there is no way to prove whether what they said is true. This group of gangsters are not philanthropists, and they can't buy it with $4 million without evidence. The life of a man who claimed to be a murderer. Indeed, Vladimir also thought of this. He really wanted to catch the murderer, but he didn't want to spend a lot of money to catch a passer-by who wasn't the murderer. Ever since, he recruited a Russian Ross who had hunted down Lu Chuang and Frank at that time. Pointing to Lu Chuang, Vladimir asked, "Is that the Asian guy you saw earlier?" The Russian looked Lu Chuang carefully. Then, he nodded confidently. "It's him. It's him. Looks exactly the same. I remember his beard." "Frank, this is no longer face blindness, this is blindness, right?" Some of the parties voluntarily admitted it before, and later it was identified by the Russians. Seeing that Lu Chuang was more and more suspected of being the attacker, Wesley knew that if he didn't do anything about it, their plan would go wrong. So, Wesley said, "With all due respect, I don't think these statements can prove anything." "Oh, do you think my men are telling lies?" Vladimir stared at Wesley closely, and the attitude of the other party made him a little suspicious. "Or, you don't want me to find out who killed my brother?" 1. "Definitely not, you may have misunderstood me. Regarding the situation that night, I don't rule out the possibility that your subordinates will be wrong. I just want to be more sure. After all, my employer also paid a bounty," Wesley explained calmly. "I'm not mistaken, it's this Asian guy, I remember his beard." The Russian Ross boy tried to explain that there was nothing wrong with his eyes. Frank was silent, he didn't know what to say. "It can't be said that this guy did it, but he doesn't have a beard at all," Vladimir said coldly. "Then how do you want to prove it?" "I heard that you lost a lot of people that night, and most of them were taken care of by another attacker. It must be that the attacker's strength is not simple." Wesley smiled confidently, and turned to look at Lu Chuang. "But look at this man, his figure doesn't look like he has received professional training, I don't think he has the strength to do this." Hearing that his own strength was questioned, Lu Chuang was not happy at the time. "What do you mean, you little four-eyed? You are doubting my strength by saying that? Punisher, tell them quickly, what happened to me that night." Riding a motorcycle, he killed the group of gangsters blocking the road with a pistol. Quote. Wesley took a deep breath. Obviously he didn't ask anything, but this guy exploded all by himself. "Is this guy short-hearted? Why did you appear here?" Frank asked. He knew Lu Chuang's strength, that kind of weird self-healing ability and unpredictable marksmanship. He shouldn't be caught so easily. Lu Chuang said seriously, "Can't you tell, I'm here to save you?" Looking at Lu Chuang, who was tied up with a rope and had to jump dozens of times while walking, Frank was expressionless. "Sorry, I really can't see it." Seeing Lu Chuang's direct description of the situation that night, and the familiar look on Frank's face, Vladimir didn't know that the person in front of him was another attacker, and suddenly rage got up, and he was about to punch Lu Chuang. Chuang's face was smashed. In the next moment, a cold light flashed, and the sharp blade stopped on his neck. Ignoring the gangsters who panicked and raised their guns, Wade held the katana in his hand and said in a dissatisfied tone, "This is against the rules. Before paying the money, he is still my man. You have to get my consent to do it in front of so many people. In front of you, don't you want to pay on credit?" "That's it." Lu Chuang hid behind Wade and shouted, as if he had found a backer. Feeling the coldness of his neck, Vladimir's body froze for an instant, and his intuition told him that the person in front of him was definitely not someone to mess with. The threat of death made him forcefully suppress the anger in his heart. "Transfer the money," Vladimir ordered a subordinate beside him with a gloomy face. In less than half a minute, Wade's cell phone vibrated. It was a message from Weasel, and the bounty has been transferred through the dark web. However, he looked at the phone screen, and suddenly exclaimed angrily, "This amount is wrong. Why is there only 2.5 million United States dollars, and where did the other 150 United States dollars go?" Noticing that katana was still on his neck, Vladimir looked sullenly at Wesley. Wesley frowned slightly. The development of the matter was completely out of control. "I need to report to my employer." Wade was too lazy to listen to nonsense, waved another katana and pointed it at Wesley, chattering endlessly, "Little Four Eyes, you should learn to be independent, and now is the best opportunity to practice. Transfer the money I should take, definitely. I don't mind if you pay more money for tuition." Quote. "I see." After a brief silence, Wesley still transferred the money. As he spoke, his eyes gradually turned cold. It is not so easy to take money from their gangsters. Looking at Vladimir's gloomy face, it is obvious that the other party does not intend to let this man in tights go. Hearing so many things here that should not be heard, how could they will let the other party go? However, the bounty that should have been paid still needs to be paid. After all, it is a bounty issued by their forces. Swallowing the bounty privately will only affect their reputation. No one will be willing to cooperate with them in the future. This is a good boy. Well, now you are his people. The mobile phone sent another money transfer message, and Wade put away katana in satisfaction, let go of the rope and pushed Lu Chuang over. Vladimir frowned. "Are we his? Shouldn't it be said that he is one of us?" Wesley immediately sensed something was wrong, stepped back a few steps and said in surprise, "Shoot them and kill them." However, Lu Chuang moved faster than them. Two pistols suddenly appeared in the lowered hands, and the suddenly contracted pupils locked everyone in the room. Boom, 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 boom. The sound of the gun was silent, and Lu Chuang assumed a posture of closing the gun. All the gangsters and bodyguards in the house fell to the ground, blood flowed from the gun on their foreheads, and the other remnants who were waiting outside the door and rushed into the house when they heard the gunshots were also screamed by Wade, and wiped them with a few knives. Neck. In just a few seconds, the gang was instantly wiped out. Only Vladimir and Wesley remained. At the moment, the house was full of corpses, and the smell of blood permeated the small space. In just a few seconds, there was no one alive in the two gangsters except for the two leaders. Under the dim light, the bloodstains on the ground reflected a penetrating scarlet light. Seeing that the people they brought were wiped out immediately, Vladimir and Wesley's complexions suddenly turned pale. When Wade killed several intruders, they didn't know that the two people in front of them were in the same group. It's not that they didn't think about this possibility at first. But when they saw that there were only two people on the other side, they relaxed their vigilance. They never thought that only two people could kill all of them in such a short period of time. "Little guy, you are such a little genius. You have earned 4 million USD, which is much easier than when I ran around the world to make money." Wade pushed katana back behind his back and looked at the phone happily. He and Lu Chuang split the bounty 50-50, that is to say, he could get 2 million USD in the end. This huge sum of money is enough for him to be cool for a long time. Lu Chuang patted his head suddenly. "Sloppy, if I knew it was so easy, I should have caught the Punisher together to claim the bounty, so we can earn at least 15 million United States dollars, what a blood loss." "Frank, I'm not dead yet, is it really okay to say such things in front of me? By the way, untie him first." Lu Chuang seemed to have just remembered the existence of Frank, and was about to untie him, only to find that there was still a lock on the iron chain. "Where's the key to the lock?" "On him." Frank glanced at Wesley. Lu Chuang nodded, came to Wesley and started searching without saying a word. Wesley's face was very ugly. He could see that this Asian was not an ordinary mercenary. The strength shown by the other party just now was definitely beyond the scope of normal people. I think we can talk, if you want to. Don't touch it, the keys are in the left pocket of my suit. If you don't say it, it's over. Lu Chuang took out a key from his pocket, and took out other things inside. Hey, what is this? This is my wallet. Don't talk nonsense, I picked it up. Lu Chuang decisively stuffed the wallet into his trouser pocket. Wesley. At this moment, Vladimir beside him suddenly exploded. Taking advantage of the moment when Lu Chuang was not paying attention, Vladimir raised the revolver he had prepared, and pulled the trigger several times at Wade in front of him, and Wade fell to the ground with a bang. Immediately afterwards, Vladimir pointed his gun at Lu Chuang and roared with a cruel smile, "Damn Asian, you are dead." Facing the black muzzle of the gun, Lu Chuang smiled confidently, "I counted it, and your bullets have been exhausted. I bet you have no bullets in your gun." Boom. Lu Chuang smiled at Juquan, tilted his head and fell to the ground. "Ha ha ha ha, you idiot, I still have a bullet in my gun." Looking at the two corpses on the ground, Vladimir suddenly had a sense of accomplishment of winning against the wind, and laughed wantonly. This situation was reversed, and Wesley was both surprised and happy. But soon, these emotions all turned into fear, because he saw that the two corpses actually moved. Apart from the terrified Wesley, Frank's expression was not much better. He saw the tight-fitting man who had been shot several times stood up again. Obviously, the other party had the same self-healing ability as Lu Chuang. What the hell, is this kind of ability wholesale? How can everyone come back from the dead? I saw Lu Chuang sat up abruptly, grabbed the gun in Vladimir's hand, pointed the muzzle at his newly healed forehead, and said viciously, "I don't believe it, come again, this time I bet there must be no bullets in your gun." Dead man suddenly revived. Vladimir's mind went blank, and he subconsciously pulled the trigger. Click click click. Sure enough, there was no bullet this time. After all, it was the last bullet just now. Lu Chuang smiled triumphantly, then raised his pistol and pointed it at Vladimir's head. "It's your turn, guess if there are any bullets in my gun." Vladimir swallowed. "Yes, I bet there are bullets." Boom. Looking at Vladimir's body, Lu Chuang said angrily, "Damn it, you won it again." Ignoring Wesley who was stunned aside, Lu Chuang picked up the key and walked over to unlock the chain for Frank. Looking at Frank with a bruised nose and swollen face like a pig's head, Lu Chuang hesitated for a few seconds, took out his plastic bag mask, and said thoughtfully, "Take it, you should need this. I'm afraid your face will be recognized by those criminals, they will not be able to help laughing when they see you in the future." After all, Frank is a brutal and iron-blooded tough guy, which is related to his image management, and Lu Chuang is also thinking about the other party. "Well, sincerely." Frank looked down at the plastic bag with two small holes poked in it and a "pork discount" sticker on the back. He definitely had reason to suspect that this was a trap, otherwise it would be hard to explain why this guy just happened to show up wearing this ridiculous mask. Frank kept a straight face and didn't take the plastic bag. He would rather wear this pig's face than wear this vile mask. Vladimir is dead. Wesley's plans were completely disrupted. To make matters worse, now he fell into the hands of these three people. "Wait, I think we can talk." Wesley couldn't help but said. He felt that he couldn't wait any longer, otherwise he would be too passive, and he had to control the rhythm of the situation. Lu Chuang's eyes lit up. "You want to negotiate? Yes, you are very welcome. I like negotiating. Are you going to pay a few $100 million for your own life?" Wesley choked suddenly. "Hundreds of millions, do you think I'm Tony Stark?" However, Lu Chuang didn't shoot directly at himself. Wesley secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Lu Chuang's move made him at least see the possibility of negotiation. He brewed his emotions, and showed a characteristic smile. "Actually, there is no relationship between us. There is no conflict. I am the employer of that commission, and I hired you to disrupt the drug trade of the Russian Ross gang." "You hired me?" Lu Chuang looked at Wesley. "I don't believe it, how do you prove it?" Good reincarnation. Lu Chuang needed to prove that he was the attacker just now. Now it is Wesley's turn to prove that he is the client. Wesley said helplessly. "The entrustment fee is 100,000, and the place and time of the transaction are provided." "Okay, it turned out to be you, and I caught you." Lu Chuang's eyes widened. and he said angrily, a mere 100,000 United States dollars made me offend so many people, and the leader of the Russian Ross gang. Do you know how scared I am all this time? Wesley glanced at Vladimir's still cool body. You killed him because you were afraid. If you are not satisfied with the remuneration, we can renegotiate. How much? Wesley tentatively said. I will pay you 3 times. Who are you looking down on? Punisher, this poor guy with no money will be handed over to you. Lu Chuang curled his lips in disdain. Now that he has 2 million United States dollars, he no longer cares about such a small amount of money. Hearing Lu Chuang's words, Frank, who was covered in blood, picked up a gun on the ground, walked slowly to Wesley, and said in a cold voice like a ghost crawling out of hell, anyone who is guilty will be punished, have to die. 5 times. 5 times the pay, etc. Lu Chuang suddenly held down the gun in Frank's hand and stopped his next move. If he didn't hold it down, he would definitely shoot directly with Frank's personality. Quote. Frank tried to raise the pistol, but found that Lu Chuang used a bit too much force. He looked at Lu Chuang expressionlessly. Are you going to let him go? Don't worry, discuss things slowly. Lu Chuang looked at Wesley with a smile. 5 times the reward is still a bit low, let's make 10 times the reward, and make up a whole number. It rose 10 times directly, and Wesley wanted to cry without tears. Is this too much? Punisher, kill him. Frank raised his pistol indifferently. Anyone who is guilty must die. I agree. 10 times the reward, etc. Quote. Frank took a deep breath. He decided not to say any lines next time, just do it directly. Seeing that another 1 million USD came in, Wade almost drooled. Little guy, I know you are the most loyal person, there must be my share in it. Lu Chuang said indifferently. I think you are thinking about farts. This is the unscrupulous boss's embezzlement of the employees' money. It is the remuneration I deserve. What does it have to do with you? Oh, Wade covered his cheeks exaggeratedly, as if he couldn't believe his teammate suddenly said such words. After a few seconds of delay, he pointed at Lu Chuang with trembling fingers. Are you sure you want to take the money all by yourself? It's all mine, it's mine. Damn it, you forced me. Wade roared, then looked at Wesley. Transfer 1 million USD to me, and I will help you get rid of this money-seeking bastard. Wesley blinked in confusion. Is this an internal strife? Frank glanced at Wade, and he didn't let go of the finger holding the trigger. Once Wade made a move, he would immediately shoot and finish the opponent. You're going to betray me for this little money. Lu Chuang looked at Wade in disbelief. It was you who betrayed me first. Wade pulled out 2 katanas, with a very firm attitude, and asked Wesley, Little Four Eyes, how are you thinking? You don't have much time. Seeing that Lu Chuang and Wade had a real dispute, Wesley was instantly ecstatic. This result couldn't be better. Only when the 2 sides fight, can I have a chance to escape. So, he nodded without hesitation. Just when Wesley was expecting the 2 to fight, Lu Chuang suddenly pointed the gun at his head and said angrily, Okay, you guys are so wicked that you actually want to split our team. Let me tell you, this time without 20 times the remuneration, this matter will be difficult to settle. Wesley was taken aback, and subconsciously looked at Wade, whom he had just hired. I saw that the other party put away katana, put his hands on the back of his head and whistled, as if it had nothing to do with him. At the moment Wesley didn't understand yet. This F-King is not internal strife, it is clearly fishing for law enforcement. 2 bloody bastards. Wesley looked aggrieved. The rhythm of controlling the situation has long been thrown to nowhere by him. Wesley found that the 2 guys in front of him couldn't use the thinking of normal people to judge at all. He was able to talk and laugh when facing all kinds of black forces, but he was at a disadvantage when facing the 2. But due to the disparity in strength between the 2 sides, Wesley couldn't afford to resist. Wesley took a deep breath. Okay, but I need to contact my employer. This extra money is not within my rights, and I can't make the decision. Seeing that Wesley's eyes didn't seem to be fake, Lu Chuang waved his hand. Let's fight, remember not to talk nonsense. Wesley silently took out a mobile phone from his suit and quickly dialed the number. He said a few words into the phone, and only briefly explained the current situation. Under the gaze of the 3 of them, he didn't pretend to be smart enough to reveal information about Lu Chuang and the others, and he also told the fact that Lu Chuang killed everyone. After getting a reply from the other party, Wesley handed the phone to Lu Chuang. "My employer wants to speak to you." Lu Chuang took the phone and greeted warmly. "Hello, you must be the famous Jin Bing." "Hello, Mr. Mercenary." A steady voice came from the other end of the phone. "It's a pity that we will talk in this way. It seems that there seems to be some unnecessary misunderstandings between us, but I think this is a good opportunity for us to a chance to rediscover." Unexpectedly, this underworld boss did not have the imagined image of a tyrant. His tone was slow and calm, appearing unhurried. Therefore, the other party is worthy of being a gangster, and this speech alone is extraordinary. A few words can offset the hostility between the two parties, making this conversation more like a friendly exchange. "Although I really want to cooperate with you and say a few words that are compelling, but I'm in a hurry." Lu Chuang didn't intend to continue chatting with Jin Bing, and said bluntly, 20 times the reward. If you give the money, you will let him go. If you don't, you will let him go. Just tear up the ticket. I'll pay you 50 times as much." Jin Bin said calmly. "According to the previous procedures, now I can transfer 2 million to your account, and after Wesley arrives at a safe place, I can transfer another 3 million. As long as you let Wes go Lee, you can get a total of 5 million USD, and I will not count the previous bounties. What do you think of this deal?" FK. Jin Bing's sudden throwing of coins made Lu Chuang a little confused. Is this the style of a boss? Hearing that there was no sound from the phone, Jin continued, "You helped me get rid of the trouble of Vladimir. I am very grateful to you. This is the reward you deserve. As I said, there are only some differences between us. Misunderstanding, so I want to clear up these misunderstandings. After all, we have not had any actual conflicts." Lu Chuang looked at the corpses of bodyguards all over the floor, nodded and said, "Indeed. The actual conflict, the meaning of this sentence is a bit ambiguous." Jin Bin secretly wanted to silence Lu Chuang, an insider, and Lu Chuang secretly almost killed Wesley, Jin Bin's right-hand man. However, none of these things have happened now, and there is indeed no real conflict between them. As for the few bodyguards, it is not worth the money at all and put Lu Chuang, a mysterious mercenary, on the opposite side of himself. Compared to this, Jin is more interested in Lu Chuang. Although he does not know what happened for the time being, judging from the results of the 2 battles the opponent participated in, it is obvious that the mercenary he hired is not simple. Jin Bin said with great interest, "Besides, I very much hope to reach a long-term cooperative relationship with someone with ability like you. If you are willing to serve me, I will give you a sufficient reward." During the speech, Jin did not show enough sincerity and politeness. Lu Chuang always felt an inexplicable sense of déjà vu. This gold could not have been traveled by Boss Cao from the 3 kingdoms, right? Putting away distracting thoughts, Lu Chuang said cheerfully, "Old Cao." "Ah no, Boss Jin, I've already felt your sincerity, but I'm not interested in being your younger brother. As for the remuneration you mentioned, I will reluctantly accept it." As Jin Bin said, they just had some misunderstandings, and it would not be the case that the 2 sides would fight to the death. Since Jin Bin is so sincere and actively wants to eliminate the misunderstanding, Lu Chuang is naturally willing to accept it. Anyway, he's not a superhero, so what does Kim have to do with him? Hearing Lu Chuang's refusal, Jin didn't bother. "It's a pleasant cooperation, and I hope there will be opportunities to cooperate in the future." Pleasant cooperation. After finishing speaking, Lu Chuang hung up the phone directly. After a while, he received the transfer notice, and Jin Bing's handling speed was really fast enough. Lu Chuang looked at Wesley. "Little Four Eyes, your boss has already paid the ransom, you can leave now." "My name is Wesley." "Okay, Little Four Eyes, let's go, Little Four Eyes." Quote. Wesley didn't dare to refute, and walked towards the iron gate. He didn't want to stay in this place for a second. Looking at Wesley's back, Wade suddenly put forward his own idea. "Little guy, why don't we follow this little 4-eyed boy secretly, and when he leaves a certain distance, we put a sack on his back and tie him back, so that we can get back together again." A ransom was extorted. "No, I am the most trustworthy person." Lu Chuang refused righteously, and then said in a low voice, "Check it out first, wait for Jin and type the mantissa to the account, and then we will find a way to tie him back." You were right. Hey, Wesley, who hadn't left yet, twitched the corner of his mouth. He always felt that there were two malicious eyes staring at him from behind. He hurriedly quickened his pace and left the room in embarrassment, almost at the speed of running. Chapter 51. You shouldn't let Jin Bin's men go. Watching Wesley's leaving figure, Frank failed to shoot after all. He turned his head to look at Lu Chuang, and said with a blank expression, Jin is not trustworthy, the people who work with him usually do not end well, this Russian Ross is enough to prove it. To improve his persuasiveness, Frank pointed to Vladimir's cool body. Lu Chuang scratched his hair. But I killed this Russian Ross, it doesn't seem to have anything to do with Jin. Quote. Frank was silent, he forgot about it. At this time, Wade suddenly said, I heard it just now, the total is 5 million USD, and our 55 points are 205. Lu Chuang said lightly, there is no 205, the 5 million USD belongs to my personal harvest. No, are you serious? What is true or false? This is my private commission reward. We agreed at the beginning that the reward is to be shared equally, not the reward. Definitely does not include the 5 million USD. Without my superb acting skills, that little four eyes wouldn't be fooled at all, and you have no chance to increase your salary. Fart, I'm obviously relying on my fluent eloquence to deceive. I want to come. Wade was so angry that his lips trembled, and he immediately pulled out 2 katanas. You little guy who is blind to money, draw your gun, I will fight you. Lu Chuang drew out his 2 guns viciously. You shameless old man, come to cheat me, an 18-year-old young man, with hard-earned money, okay. Seeing that the two were about to fight suddenly, Frank was exhausted physically and mentally. It seems that their internal strife just now was not completely fake. There is no need for others to sow discord in this kind of team, I am afraid they will split themselves first. Street a few hundred meters away. Wesley looked behind with lingering fear, and was relieved to find that the 2 guys hadn't followed. 10 minutes later, a black Cadley slowly pulled up to the side of the road. When Wesley walked into the car, he saw Jin Bin sitting in the back seat. His huge figure almost filled the entire car. He held a cane in his hand, and rubbed the top of the cane unconsciously with his fingers. Great gem. After seeing Wesley coming, he asked calmly, tell me, what's going on? It was the Asian man. He found a companion to help, and then attacked us pretending to be caught. His marksmanship was terrible. Before I had time to see clearly, he killed everyone, and... Speaking of this, Wesley's face looked very bad. He and that companion seemed to have some kind of special ability. Even if they are shot in the head, they can't die, and their wounds only took less than a few seconds to fully heal. Excellent self-healing speed. There was a trace of surprise on Jin Bin's face. This kind of ability is not something that normal people can possess. Soon, he thought of mutant. That race with all kinds of strange abilities. For Jin Bin, mutants are not uncommon. He has also seen many mutants with strange abilities, but he has not seen a few mutants that can't be killed even if they are shot. Jin Bin pondered for a while, and slowly ordered, try to block the news of Vladimir's death, and before Mrs. Gao and Mr. Shin react, send someone to take over Vladimir's remaining territory. As for the mercenary, all previous arrangements for him have been temporarily cancelled. Now that Vladimir is dead, no amount of insiders and evidence has become meaningless. Send someone to pay attention to his news. Perhaps, he will be a good partner. Clear. Without Lu Chuang's oppression, Wesley finally regained his right-hand man appearance. Looking at Hell's Kitchen outside the window, Jin Bing looked calm. This place is sick, the virus has penetrated the ground completely, and the disease is incurable. Only completely destroyed. In order to regain new hope. After a heated discussion, after Lu Chuang offered to give up 20% of the salary, Wade finally left satisfied, and he was going home to find Vanessa to work. Lu Chuang and Frank also left the room and walked down the street. At night, looking at Frank who exudes scarlet luster under the street lamp, Lu Chuang felt that it was really a bit pervasive. Well, don't you feel uncomfortable with so much blood? Not uncomfortable. Frank's face was flat. As an executioner with blood on his hands, he didn't care about it at all. Lu Chuang struggled and said, but I feel uncomfortable watching it, why don't I change your clothes for you? Where did you get your clothes? Frank frowned, he didn't see Lu Chuang brought clothes. It's easy, follow me. Lu Chuang smiled confidently, and then turned into an alley. Frank hesitated for a while, and then walked in. Soon, they saw a few unscrupulous punks appearing in the alley. The other party seemed to have also noticed their figures, but due to the weather, they didn't notice Frank's horrible bloodstains. Seeing only two people walking in, they smiled maliciously, swayed their bodies and walked over, and took out a very threatening knife in his hand. However, before they got close, Lu Chuang skillfully raised his pistol and pointed it at the gangsters who randomly spawned from the alley. I'm announcing good news. You have been robbed. Stand obediently in a row and let our fine brother choose clothes. As he said that, Lu Chuang suddenly turned his head to look at Frank. By the way, do you need underwear? Frank, punks. According to the statistics of a lawyer who did not want to disclose the name. In Hell's Kitchen, a criminal activity occurs every 10 seconds on average. Here, crime has become the norm like breathing. This kind of crime rate is out of the ordinary even in the world. The reason for all this is because of the rampant local gang organizations. Almost all criminals in Hell's Kitchen are members of gangsters, and 90% of criminal activities must be related to gangsters, especially the battle between gangsters, which has always occupied the largest crime rate in Hell's Kitchen. Although the police intend to curb the frequent occurrence of various criminal activities, as long as they fail to solve the root cause of the gang for one day, mobilizing more police forces will be futile. With the passage of time, not only has the crime rate in Hell's Kitchen not been resolved, but new criminals have emerged one after another, making the residents of Hell's Kitchen miserable. Ever since, a street hero stood up. Matt Murdock, who did not want to reveal his name, was standing on the roof of a low building, listening to the sounds around him. By day he is an eloquent lawyer. At night, he turns into Daredevil to fight crime on the streets of Hell's Kitchen. It can be called the master of time management in the new era. Different from the suit and leather shoes during the day, at the moment Matt was wearing a dark red leather tights. The hood with two small horns completely covered the eyes, and no one could see the exhausted face under the mask. Color. Yesterday, he and Fudge's office received a new case, and they needed to run around during the day to collect information. And the recent Hell's Kitchen is also uneasy, especially the Russian Ross gang seems to have become extremely active for some reason. In line with the idea of preventing crimes from happening, Matt has been searching for intelligence information about the Russian Ross people for several days, so that he not much rest time at all. Even with physical fitness far beyond ordinary people, Matt began to feel a little overwhelmed. As usual, Matt stood in the most active area of the Ross gang in Russia, using his radar-like perception ability to hear all the sounds around him, so as to filter out useful information. At this moment, Matt suddenly heard some voices coming from the alley 2 streets away. It sounds like a passerby has been robbed. Matt didn't have any hesitation, and immediately jumped over the roof with both legs, and jumped down into the alley. What do you think of this dress? Green looks very eco-friendly. This one is also good, the tight tank top can fully show your muscular contours. Look at this one again. It has a piggy pattern on it. Let alone, it looks quite similar to your current face. At this moment, the atmosphere in the alley was extremely strange. I saw a few gangsters standing in a row with their backs against the wall, posing in various weird poses under the street lights, showing themselves like a model. And Lu Chuang is like a salesperson introducing clothing styles in front of the models, and giving customers his own valuable suggestions with his own aesthetic vision. As a customer, Frank put on a cold look. Obviously, this is a rational consumer, and it is not easy to get money out of his pocket. For a moment, Matt wondered if there was something wrong with his sensory ability. The scene in front of him seemed to be somewhat different from what he had imagined. A good crime scene, how come it looks like a Victoria's Secret? Who is there? Come out. Sensing the movement behind him, the indifferent customer Frank suddenly turned his head to look at Matt's position. Hearing this, several pairs of eyes instantly looked at Matt. To be honest, even when facing a group of criminals back then, Matt was not in such a complicated mood as he is now, and he always felt like he was disturbing other people's good deeds. But soon, Matt smelled a strong smell of blood emanating from Lu Chuang and Frank. He was 100% sure that it was definitely the smell of human blood. Especially Frank, Matt could smell an extremely strong smell of blood very clearly, radiating from his body towards the surroundings. The bloody smell was so pungent that he almost suffocated. At least a dozen people have to be killed to accumulate such a strong smell of blood. Matt's heart sank, and he immediately marked the two people in front of him as dangerous people. He took out a short metal stick from his waist, walked forward slowly, and asked in a low voice, "Who are you and what are you doing here?" Frank. How should he answer this question? Could it be that he was tricked by Lu Chuang to rob the gangsters of their clothes? It's him, the red demon that roams the night. As a native of Hell's Kitchen, the gangsters immediately recognized Matt's identity. One gangster even cried out to him, "Help us, we were robbed by them." This Asian guy not only threatened us with a gun, but also wanted to they took our clothes and asked us to pose in strange poses. Before he finished speaking, the gangster was kicked to the ground by Lu Chuang's family planning kick. The rest of the gangsters immediately shut up, for fear that they would end up in the same end. Matt didn't try to stop them. He could smell the smell of a small amount of drugs on the gangsters, which was very consistent with the smell left in this alley. It was obvious that they were doing some illegal things before that. Sensing the gun in Lu Chuang's hand, Matt frowned slightly, and the short stick was ready to go. He faced Lu Chuang and asked again, "Tell me, who are you guys and why are you here?" Pure passerby. Lu Chuang spread his hands, and he also recognized the daredevil in front of him, to be precise, the identity of lawyer Matt. The voice sounded familiar to Matt, but the change in the heartbeat frequency of the other party quickly interrupted his thoughts. According to the sound of the heartbeat, Matt clearly heard that the other party was lying, and shook his head. "No, you definitely didn't happen to pass by so simply, you must have other things." In this regard, Lu Chuang's attitude is very firm. "I am an honest person, I never lie, we just passed by." If anyone pays attention to Lu Chuang's eyes at this time, they will find that his pupils are constantly zooming. At the same time, the heartbeat soared to 400. Boom boom boom. The heart rate keeps changing, eventually forming a cheerful rhythm. Matt's face changed for a while. In the end, he covered his heart with a pale face, gritted his teeth and said, "This time it's ode to joy, so it's you." You may not notice it the first time. But now, Matt is basically sure that Lu Chuang can freely control his heart rate. Otherwise, it is difficult to explain why the heartbeats heard twice will have a strange musical rhythm. Even if Beethoven himself is resurrected, his heartbeats will not jump out of the Ode to Joy and the Symphony of Destiny. Thinking along this line of thought, the reason why Lu Chuang controlled his heartbeat twice is very clear. It was obviously targeting him on purpose. In other words, the other party has long known that he has the ability to hear the heartbeat, so every time he eavesdrops on the heartbeat, he controls the heartbeat frequency to interfere with himself. But the question is, when was he exposed? Matt's face was a little ugly. He and Lu Chuang had only met once, but the other party seemed to know everything about him, even the identity of Daredevil. You know, he has never revealed that he is Daredevil to anyone, not even his closest friend Fudge. "Leave here," Matt yelled at the punks, and he didn't want them to hear the rest of the conversation. Seeing that the Red Demon helped them block the two big villains, the gangsters immediately felt relieved and nodded their thanks again and again. Then they were very loyal and did not forget to drag the half-dead gangster to leave. "Leave his clothes and pants," Lu Chuang said lightly. Hearing his words, the gangsters trembled instinctively. Being loyal, they took off the clothes and pants of their good brother without saying a word, even the underwear. They did not forget the words Lu Chuang mentioned, for fear that Lu Chuang would find an excuse to keep them here again. Throwing the three-piece suit at Frank's feet, they dragged their good brother and ran away. Quote. Looking at the yellowed briefs, Frank didn't say a word. After the gangsters left, the atmosphere in the alley froze. Seeing Matt, who was suddenly silent, Lu Chuang smiled and broke the silence first. "What's wrong, Lawyer Ma, are you feeling unwell?" Anyway, there was no one present, so Lu Chuang didn't bother to call out titles. "My surname is not Ma," Matt corrected. "Good Lawyer Ma." Quote. As a devout Catholic, Matt has good qualities. After a moment of silence, he slowly said, "How did you know my identity?" "It's a long story. One time I saw a blind man walking into an alley with a cane. As a good young man in the 21st century, I definitely wanted to go over to see if he needed help." Lu Chuang is no longer himself in the research institute. He calmly shared the story he just made up, and then asked, "In the end, guess what I saw?" Matt didn't speak. He had already guessed that the blind man the other party was talking about was himself. Lu Chuang narrated vividly in a tone of feigned amazement. "I saw this blind man run suddenly, good guy, he ran faster than me with both eyes open, and then he put away his crutches and jumped straight when he got up. He jumped several meters high, and by the way he split a fork in the air. He twisted his hips a few times at random, and then climbed over a high wall. Finally, he pushed the whole person up with his buttocks, easily climbed to the top of the roof." Anyway, Lu Chuang was also the author of a street novel. These words are enough to show his profound writing skills. Hearing Lu Chuang's description, Matt knew that he was probably witnessed by the other party when he ran to fight criminals without having time to change his clothes. This explains how Lu Chuang knew his identity. Only, why is his climbing action described so wretchedly? Moreover, he has never split in the air. Out of prudent considerations, Matt did not directly believe Lu Chuang's words, but adopted his usual method of listening to the heartbeat frequency of the other party to judge whether he was lying. Boom boom boom. Very well, this time it's Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. Matt was silent for a few seconds, decisively blocking his perception ability. Abandoning the plan to judge lies, Matt said in a deep voice, "Then how do you know about my ability?" "It's so fresh. A blind person can fly over walls. He must be able to hear far beyond ordinary people. Isn't Li Qing a good example?" Lu Chuang jumped up and down while talking. Matt frowned, moving his head from side to side following Lu Chuang's movements. "What are you doing? No way, can you really hear it so clearly?" Lu Chuang looked at Matt in disbelief. "In some ways, this perception ability is stronger than bullet time. After all, bullet time requires the use of eyes to observe, and Matt's perception ability does not need eyes at all, and can perceive all actions around him. Definitely, the bullet time is mainly stronger in the reaction ability, which Matt is definitely incomparable to." Matt was a little speechless, and said in a serious tone, "You were right, my hearing is indeed better than ordinary people, and I can feel all your movements, so I advise you not to." "Mr. Lu, please put down your middle finger, I said I can feel it." Lu Chuang put away his fingers in embarrassment. "It's nothing else, I'm just curious to try." Matt didn't dwell on this topic, but took a step forward with a sense of oppression. "I remember you said that you live in Brooklyn. You shouldn't be in West Midtown at this time. I hope you can tell me the truth. What is your purpose for coming to West Midtown tonight?" Lu Chuang spread his hands, grabbed two pistols and said sincerely, "We didn't do anything, we were really just passing by. If you don't believe me, you can listen to my heartbeat to see if it is lying." Matt naturally wouldn't believe this. But he didn't eavesdrop on Lu Chuang's heart rate, he was afraid that he would listen to all Beethoven's music in one night. "Then tell me, what's the matter with the bloody smell on your body, and what did you do before?" "Sorry, this is a personal matter, no comment." Lu Chuang didn't bother to make up lies, and his face looked like "I wouldn't tell if I was killed." Although Matt couldn't see his expression, he could clearly feel Lu Chuang's refusal attitude. Matt shook the short stick in his hand tightly, and said in a low voice, "Mr. Lu, please don't force me. You don't want to do it, do you?" Lu Chuang clasped his arms around his chest and shook his legs, arrogant like a villain. "I advise you to take care of yourself. Now you are only one person, and we have two people here, you will suffer a lot if you fight." Matt's tone was a little helpless. "Your companion left long ago." "Are you kidding? You're trying to trick me into turning my head around and sneaking up on me, a young man. This low-level trick has long been outdated, right Frank?" However, no one responded to his words. Frank. Lu Chuang suddenly had a bad feeling. He turned his neck stiffly. As expected, there was no Frank figure behind him. Only a pair of yellowed briefs remained in place, and the top and trousers were all missing. At this time, Matt explained from the side, "While we were talking, the strong man had already left with his clothes on." Lu Chuang. While observing Lu Chuang, Matt also did not ignore the bloody Frank. Fortunately, Frank does not have the freedom to control the frequency of his heart like Lu Chuang. Therefore, Matt can clearly hear Frank's heart rate, which is stronger than ordinary people. Combined with the information obtained by other sensory abilities, Matt can be sure that Frank is definitely a powerful fighter. Although Matt could feel that the opponent was injured, he still wasn't sure of victory. With Lu Chuang in front of him, he really didn't have enough confidence to keep two people at once. But Frank chose to leave, which gave Matt a chance. Although I don't know the specific reason, it was because of internal conflicts or other conspiracies, but Matt didn't take action to keep Frank, but let the other party go. In Matt's view, as long as Lu Chuang is left alone, he can still get the information he wants to know. If there is any problem at that time, he can find the other party's companion through Lu Chuang. After scanning the alley several times and confirming that Frank really left, Lu Chuang couldn't believe it. No way, what about America's iron-blooded tough guy? How can a tough guy leave his teammates and sneak away? Most importantly, he also wanted to see Frank in that piggy suit, and if possible, take a few photos as souvenirs. Lu Chuang couldn't accept this fact for a while. To be honest, the image of Frank in his heart is a little bit broken. It was obvious that the other party was a tough guy who could wipe out the entire gang with a pistol some time ago. It's just a few days since I haven't seen him. Why did he suddenly learn to sell his teammates? Lu Chuang analyzed it carefully, and finally came up with the most reasonable answer. Definitely influenced by Wade. Frank touched Wade tonight, so even Frank, the tough guy, has become abnormal, otherwise there is no explanation for Frank's sudden change. Yes, it must be like this. As the only normal person around Wade, Lu Chuang felt that his pressure was much greater. Feeling the hotter gaze behind him, Lu Chuang turned his head to look at Matt, showing an awkward yet polite smile. Well, I think we can sit down and discuss it slowly. Why don't I give you a fork? Let's forget about it. Matt didn't respond. He didn't want to listen to such perfunctory words, and he didn't want to watch the other party split. He wanted to figure out the identities of Lu Chuang and Frank, and what they did. The current Hell's Kitchen can't stand any trouble. If they are allowed to continue to behave in Hell's Kitchen, it will be a trouble for the entire Hell's Kitchen. Seeing Matt's attitude so resolute, Lu Chuang sighed. Well, since you want to know so much, then I'll tell you. Just when Matt thought Lu Chuang was going to tell the truth, Lu Chuang suddenly pointed behind him. Look, there's a flying saucer. ... Matt didn't turn his head. After all, he couldn't see the flying saucer. Lu Chuang didn't care whether he believed it or not. After shouting this sentence, he turned around and ran away. Matt sighed lightly, and the short stick in his hand was released instantly, and hit Lu Chuang's back with a whoosh. Boom! Accompanied by a gunshot, the bullet accurately shot down the short stick. Matt was startled when he heard the voice. Within the scope of his perception, he can clearly perceive that Lu Chuang fired this shot while running, and it is not easy to shoot with such accuracy under such interference. Without hesitation, Matt ran after him and picked up the short stick on the ground. Whoosh! Faint tearing air sounds struck, and the running Lu Chuang turned his head to look up to the left, only to see a short stick shot towards him. While the pupils were zooming, Lu Chuang stretched out his arm and firmly grasped the short stick. However, unexpectedly, an iron chain was connected to the end of the short stick, and a force instantly came from the iron chain, forcibly stopping Lu Chuang's pace, and at the same time pulled the short stick out of Lu Chuang's hand, and returned to the owner along the iron chain hands. In the darkness, a red demon with pointed ears stood on the rooftop. If it wasn't for the completely different color and shape, Lu Chuang would have thought that he had traveled to Gotham City with simple folk customs and met the throat cancer patient. Batman, Batman. Lu Chuang looked up at Matt and tried to persuade him. Lawyer Ma, I think it's getting late, so you should go home and go to bed quickly. You have to get up early tomorrow as a migrant worker. Have you earned enough for this month's living expenses? Quote. This is the downside of identity exposure. The image of superhero, which is full of mysterious charm, suddenly turned into a poor worker who struggled for a living. Matt couldn't help feeling sad when he thought that he would have to get up early tomorrow morning to sort out the case with Fudge. Lu Chuang's words went unanswered. Accompanied by the sound of the chain, the red figure fell from a height like a steel wire, and the riotous figure rushed towards Lu Chuang. His speed was so fast that ordinary people could not react at all. But Lu Chuang had already started the bullet time, and he had a panoramic view of Matt's movements. The moment Matt jumped down, Lu Chuang raised his right arm and smashed Matt's cheek with the butt of the gun. Boom! The butt of the gun was blocked by Matt's arm, and then with a sudden force from his waist, he hit Lu Chuang's shoulder sideways with a whip kick, and kicked Lu Chuang directly to the wall with huge amounts of force. Lu Chuang snorted, and his back felt a little numb. Not paying attention to the pain, Lu Chuang saw Matt throwing the short stick at him again. He immediately raised his double guns, fired at the short stick to change its direction of movement, and at the same time several bullets hit Matt. Bang bang bang. Matt perceived Lu Chuang's movements in advance, and his speed was naturally not as fast as the bullets, but he was able to judge the trajectory of all the bullets based on the muzzle of the gun, and moved quickly to avoid the incoming bullets. At the same time, approaching Lu Chuang at an extremely fast speed is a set of close-quarters bunt. This skill. At the moment Matt gave Lu Chuang the feeling that although his strength was far inferior to that of Mutant Gina, his fighting skills were much higher than that of Mutant Gina. He could use all kinds of moves at his fingertips, and his movements were extremely fast, leaving no chance for Lu Chuang to breathe at all. Every attack is forcing Lu Chuang to dodge, making it difficult for Lu Chuang to escape from his attack range. Lu Chuang could only avoid Matt's violent attack like a storm by maintaining the bullet time uninterrupted. The most troublesome thing is that Matt's perception ability can easily capture his movements. Whenever he raises his pistol, Matt will focus on attacking his arms and try to shoot down the pistol in his hand many times. Gun. Lu Chuang got a little tired of hiding, and said viciously, "You forced me." Hearing his words, Matt immediately became alert. In his opinion, Lu Chuang's identity is quite mysterious, and it is very likely that he is hiding some kind of method that he does not know. Jingle. In Matt's induction, a cylindrical object suddenly fell from Lu Chuang's body, making a slight jetting sound. Smoke bomb. Matt had a guess in an instant, but he didn't take it seriously. Smoke bombs can seriously affect the enemy's line of sight, but for him, the effect of smoke bombs is basically zero. Wait, what's with the smell? Matt suddenly noticed something strange. He could smell something wrong with the smoke. Seem especially smelly. Oops, it's a stink bomb. Matt didn't even have time to hold his breath, and his super sense of smell became a burden at this time, and an unpleasant smell lingered in his nose. After passing through his sense of smell, the smell was directly magnified several times, making Matt almost spit it out. But the smell is not the point. Matt is more worried about the effect of the stink bomb. You must know that high-efficiency anesthetics or hypnotic ability agents are usually added to stink bombs to make people lose their ability to move or simply lose consciousness. Matt is not sure whether the sip he just inhaled will cause negative effects. Matt immediately stabilized himself to prevent himself from falling suddenly. However, after a few seconds, he found that his body still hadn't changed. In the air, there is only the horrible stench that has not dissipated. Just when Matt was puzzled, Lu Chuang smiled triumphantly, and asked with a grin, "Lawyer Ma, this is a delicacy from my hometown, a stinky tofu-flavored smoke bomb, how do you feel?" It turns out that this is not the smell of stink bombs, but stinky tofu. The corner of Matt's mouth twitched. This is not a snack. Why would someone be so bored as to make smoke bombs into flavors? And it smells so stinky. Are you sure this is edible food? Knowing that it wasn't a stink bomb, Matt's tense nerves instantly relaxed, resisting the extremely stinky smell, and the attack that had slowed down became violent again. Lu Chuang dodged hastily for a few times, and said angrily, "Shame on your face, don't you eat my trick." Jingle. Another smoke bomb fell from Lu Chuang's body, spouting thick smoke. Matt thought it was another stinky tofu-flavored smoke bomb this time. As a result, an extremely strong smell of rancidity suddenly came to the tip of his nose. Lu Chuang did not forget to introduce triumphantly, "This is a specialty of a place in my hometown, a smoke bomb with a bean juice flavor." "What kind of food do you eat in your hometown?" Matt felt a little sick to his stomach. Two different smells came together and cooked a new dish through his sense of taste, stimulating his sense of smell crazily. But it's not over yet. Just a few jingling sounds, and then several completely different but stinky smells poured into Matt's poor nasal cavity like a tide. It's durian, bean juice, hot and sour powder, canned herring. Following Lu Chuang's familiar introduction, Matt finally couldn't bear it anymore, and immediately ran to the corner and opened his mouth. As if the yellow river was flooding out of control, he vomited out all the contents of his stomach, and even though there is no time to care about the sound of footsteps. Sweet and bitter, mixed feelings. This moment. This devout Catholic believer seemed to see his God. Mr. Lu Xuan once said that all ways to make money are written in a small notebook. Lu Chuang agrees with this sentence very much. In just one night, he earned a total of $6 million United States dollars after excluding the part of the money that was distributed to Wade. It was a number he had never thought of before. After receiving the final payment of $3 million from Jin Bing, Lu Chuang immediately found Weasel and bought a large amount of firearms and ammunition without stopping. When Weasel saw the long list, he was so scared that he was almost speechless. After Lu Chuang repeatedly assured that he was not planning to attack the White House, Weasel reluctantly accepted this huge order. Due to the large quantity, Weasel could not deliver all the goods in a short period of time, so Lu Chuang could only choose to collect them in batches. The earliest batch of goods only took a few days, and the latest batch took several weeks to arrive. And in the process, Lu Chuang discovered a very important problem. That is, he doesn't have enough room to put these things down. Although there is still some space in the apartment that can be used, Lu Chuang does not want to make the place where he lives so crowded. Besides, there are so many firearms and ammunition at home, which will be somewhat inconvenient. He can't follow a large pile of firearms and ammunition. Live your life. Ever since, Lu Chuang had the idea of changing places. At the beginning, he wanted the safe house of Weasel because it was cheap, and because he wanted to avoid Francis. Now that he has solved both problems, and still has a huge sum of money in his hand that he can use casually, he naturally has nothing to worry about. He doesn't have any memories of this apartment belonging to the Weasel. Just do it. On the fourth day after receiving the final payment, Lu Chuang came to Queens, next door to Brooklyn, based on the online house sale information. Arriving at the designated location, Lu Chuang saw a low-rise house that was much larger than the Weasel's apartment, with a sign for sale. According to the brand's phone number, Lu Chuang contacted the owner and explained his purpose of coming. When he heard that Lu Chuang was here to buy a house, the other party readily agreed to his request for viewing the house and drove over quickly. Not surprisingly, the homeowner is a bald, middle-aged man. "Sir, I promise that my house will not disappoint you, please come in with me." The bald man greeted him warmly, and then took Lu Chuang into the house for a tour, and at the same time introduced various advantages of his house to Lu Chuang. I have to say that the interior decoration of the house is really good. It can be seen that the bald man has a good vision. Most of the furniture in the house is brand new, with everything that should be there. According to the bald man's explanation, this house was originally renovated for him and his wife to live in together. Who knew that he found out that his wife was having an affair outside, and then divorced in a fit of anger, so he made this newly renovated house public. Make a sale. The bald man is strong, as can be seen from the uncontrollable smile on his face. Lu Chuang probably guessed the reason. It is estimated that the woman's cheating saved him a sum of expensive alimony directly, and he can use this money to enjoy himself freely. Old America featured. In short, after looking around for a few times, Lu Chuang is quite satisfied with the house. Especially the warehouse in the basement and the garage connected to the house. The warehouse in the basement can store the pile of firearms and ammunition, and the garage can be transformed into his workshop as a place for transforming firearms and ammunition in the future. Frankly speaking, I like this house very much, but the price is too high. Lu Chuang tried to bargain. 875,000 United States dollars, the price is already very low. No one has lived in this house since it was renovated. You can see that the furniture is brand new, and no one has touched it at all. The bald man heard the words immediately argued. "You're right, but I don't have that much money, so let's make a discount. I'll give you a broken bone, okay?" The bald man kept a smile on his face. "I'm sorry, I've lost a lot of money. How about this? I'll give you all the furniture, and you don't need to buy new furniture." Lu Chuang was unmoved. "If you give me a change, I can consider paying in one lump sum." "If you are willing to pay in one lump sum, I can give you a small change. How about 870,000? Wipe a change, 800,000. Quote. The bald man's smile froze, and he directly wiped out 70,000. "Why the hell didn't you grab it?" For this price, the bald man obviously couldn't accept it. After some intense discussions, the two finally reached a consensus. Lu Chuang needs to pay 850,000 United States dollars in one lump sum, and the bald man not only has to give Lu Chuang all the furniture in the house, but also has to bear the transaction tax for both parties. The gang dealt. However, Lu Chuang did not sign the contract immediately, but out of caution, he found a professional lawyer to look at the contract. As for professional lawyers, needless to say, it's definitely Matt and Fudge both. Not long after, Fudge walked into the room and smiled at Lu Chuang. "Mr. Lu, we meet again, and I am very happy to serve you." Seeing that Matt's figure did not appear, Lu Chuang couldn't help asking curiously, "Isn't Lawyer Ma here?" "Lawyer Ma?" Fudge was taken aback, and then realized, "Oh, you are talking about Matt. He seems to be a little unwell recently, and he has no appetite for anything, so he has been resting at home these days, but please rest assured, there is absolutely no question of my professionalism." Hearing Matt's recent situation, Lu Chuang raised his eyebrows. Hasn't he recovered after so many days? Lu Chuang felt a little regretful that he didn't see Matt's tragedy with his own eyes, and nodded to Fudge. "Then I will leave the rest to you." Okay. Fudge accepted the contract and instantly entered the state of a lawyer. It is convenient to have a professional lawyer. Lu Chuang does not need to go to see it by himself. Fuji will explain the terms of the contract one by one to help him quickly understand the responsibilities and obligations implied by the contract, including the legal consequences of violation. Due to the different conditions of the country, many terms Lu Chuang didn't know. After confirming that it was correct, Lu Chuang finally signed the contract, and finally had a home that truly belonged to him. In order to express his gratitude, Lu Chuang invited Fuji to eat at a nearby Chinese restaurant. Although Lu Chuang felt that the taste was not very good, Fuji enjoyed the meal. After all, Chinese restaurants are changed according to the tastes of foreigners like them. Before leaving, Lu Chuang specially packed a portion of stinky tofu for Fuji to take back. "This is Lawyer Ma's favorite Chinese delicacy. You can take it home and give him a taste." "Ah, when did he like to eat this kind of thing?" Fudge frowned and looked at the stinky tofu. If he hadn't seen the waiter take it out of the kitchen with his own eyes, he would have wondered if it was taken out from somewhere. Lu Chuang said cheerfully, "He told me secretly. I guarantee that he will have a big appetite after seeing it." "Then I thank you for Matt." "You are welcome." The next day, Lu Chuang settled the matter of moving. It was said to be moving, but in fact it was mainly to deal with the pile of guns, ammunition and materials in his apartment. To be honest, it is indeed a headache to transfer so many things, and if the police are attracted, it will be in big trouble. Fortunately, Weasel has a way. Lu Chuang invited a reliable professional team, and it took half a day to successfully transfer everything to Lu Chuang's new home, including the motorcycle that was brought in from Francis. At the same time, Lu Chuang's first shipment arrived. Among them is Lu Chuang's long-awaited sniper rifle, which is the legendary Barrett M82A1 anti-materiel sniper rifle. The performance of this famous anti-materiel sniper rifle naturally needs no further explanation. For Lu Chuang, who has a super high school level sharpshooter, this sniper rifle with a maximum range of 2,500 meters fell into his hands, which is like adding wings to a tiger. Confidence can solve Gina in a short time. However, Lu Chuang felt that such power was not enough. If the opponent is hiding inside the building, surrounded by thick walls, even Barrett may not be able to do anything to him. So the best solution is to wipe out the buildings and the enemies together. This kind of power is enough to be called a large caliber weapon. So, he carried Barrett into the garage and made some changes to Barrett. In the morning, Lu Chuang opened his eyes and found that he was lying in the garage and fell asleep. Picking up the phone to check the time, it was already 7 o'clock in the morning. Looking at the half-finished Barrett on the work table, Lu Chuang couldn't help sighing. "I have to say, this thing is much more fun than the game. I made it all night without knowing it. No wonder Tony Stark is so obsessed with his steel armor figures." Speaking of this, Lu Chuang suddenly remembered his achievement task, and felt a little melancholy. So far, he has no clue about his high-tech battlesuit, and Tony Stark's steel battlesuit seems to have been upgraded for several versions. If this continues, he may face anti-Hulk armor. Lu Chuang looked at the unlocking conditions again. Open black lens bracket defeat Iron Man Tony Stark's steel battle suit with a high-tech battle suit made by myself 0/1 close black lens bracket. A high-tech battle suit built by yourself. Lu Chuang pondered. It seems that I didn't say that I need to invent a new high-tech battle suit, but that I make it myself. That is to say, as long as this high-tech battle suit is made by me, it can be regarded as a high-tech battle suit I made myself. If this is the case, the difficulty is indeed reduced a lot at once. After all, the profession is completely wrong, and it is basically impossible for Lu Chuang to create a high-tech battle suit out of thin air. But here comes the problem again. If he wants to create a high-tech battle suit by himself, he must be assisted by a very professional technician. It's similar to playing with Lego blocks when I was a child. If you want to assemble it, you must at least have an instruction manual for the installation steps. Otherwise, there are so many parts that you don't know which piece goes with which piece. In the end, it will only be a semi-finished product with 4 different shapes. However, where would he find such a technical person who knows how to make a high-tech battlesuit, and most importantly, the high-tech battlesuit made by the other party must have the ability to defeat Tony Stark's steel battlesuit. Lu Chuang recalled carefully, in addition to Tony Stark's steel battlesuit, he does know several powerful high-tech battlesuits, such as Ant-Man's battlesuit that can freely expand and contract the body file size, Black Panther's a battlesuit compiled by vibranium. And finally there's the supervillain from the second Iron Man movie, who can also make steel battle suits. These high-tech battle suits have the ability to resist steel battle suits. It's just that the people who made them are either out of reach, or have weird personalities and are hard to get in touch with. If you want to find these people to assist you in making a high-tech battle suit, the possibility is basically zero. Forget it. The big deal is that I will find an opportunity to steal their blueprints, and then find a technical staff willing to assist me in making the battle suit. Well, that's it. Lu Chuang secretly made up his mind to ignore the problem of the high-tech battle suit, and he will find out this technical person. The requirements for this technician are not small, at least the level of knowledge cannot be much lower than that of the manufacturer, otherwise it will be embarrassing if the other party cannot understand the blueprint. With a new plan in mind, Lu Chuang walked out of the house, intending to go out and find a place to have breakfast. As soon as he went out, Lu Chuang suddenly heard a sound of quarreling, which came from the opposite house. I saw a dispute between a beautiful woman and a black young man. They both held on to the courier box tightly and refused to let go, and a little boy was curled up behind the woman. The scared expression on his face was obviously frightened. Lu Chuang walked over without thinking too much. This is obviously my courier. The name on it. Damn it, this is my thing. I told you to let it go, do you hear me? The black youth noticed Lu Chuang's arrival, and his tone became more and more anxious. The movements of his hands became even more insipid. He grabbed the express box and shook it violently a few times. This woman's strength was no match for a grown man, and she was thrown to the ground by this force. Aunt May. The little boy sobbed softly, grabbing the woman with his little hands and trying to lift her up. Seeing this scene, Lu Chuang still didn't know what happened. Stealing deliveries is a folk tradition in America. The courier industry here is not as popular as in his hometown. Many couriers leave the couriers at the door of their homes, so they often attract some guys who like to pick up cheap couriers, and these thieves who steal couriers are called porch pirates. Among all forms of crime, being a porch pirate can be said to be easy and comfortable. After all, they can easily make a quick sum of money with their little hands, and they don't need to risk the risk of burglary. Earn money. The black youth was clearly a porch pirate. However, his luck seemed to be unlucky. He happened to be caught by the homeowner while stealing the courier. And the black young man is obviously illegally illiterate or a stunned young man who has just debuted. It's fine if he is found out, but he still wants to steal the courier. He turned the theft into a robbery. This IQ is no one. The woman fell to the ground. The black youth grabbed the express box and was about to run, but found that Lu Chuang was standing in front of him. Immediately, he took out a knife and waved it wildly, yelling viciously, "Get out of here, Asian guy." Good guy, just upgrade to robbery with a knife. Is this guy rushing back to prison to pick up soap? Boom. Lu Chuang didn't bother to talk nonsense about this kind of random refreshed punk, and directly kicked him with a family planning kick. Looking at the black young man whose eyes were gradually glazed over, Lu Chuang sighed helplessly, feeling that he was going further and further down the path of Thanos. On the other side, the beautiful woman had already stood up, dragged the little boy over, and thanked her repeatedly. "Thank you so much for helping me stop this bastard. It's okay, just a little busy." Seeing Lu Chuang's young appearance, and the fact that the other party helped her just now, the woman had a very good impression of Lu Chuang, and said with a warm smile, "You are the new resident who moved in a few days ago. It's May Parker, the owner of this house, and it looks like we'll be neighbors in the future." As she spoke, she pushed the little curly-haired boy to the front. "This is my nephew Peter Parker." Little Peter sniffed, and whispered to Lu Chuang, My name is Peter, thank you for saving Aunt May." Peter Parker. Lu Chuang raised his eyebrows, the name sounds familiar. Glancing at this woman named May, Lu Chuang suddenly realized, isn't this kid with a nose bubble the future little Spider-Man? Representatives of the poor rely on variation. However, the current little Peter looks only 7 or 8 years old, and there is still a big difference from the little Spider-Man in Lu Chuang's memory. It seems that the other party is still a long time away from becoming a superhero. In other words, little Spider-Man seems to be a top student. His IQ is considered to be among the best in the entire Marvel world, so he should be able to make a battle suit, right? Lu Chuang narrowed his eyes slightly, and said cheerfully, "Little Peter, I think you have great potential as a superhero. You have to work hard, your aunt will need your protection in the future." Little Peter is also at the age of a child and is in the genre period. Seeing the big brother who defeated the bad guys at once say this to himself, he sucked his nose excitedly at that time. "Can I become a superhero?" "Definitely yes, as long as you read more." Read more. Yes, reading can accumulate enough knowledge, and knowledge is power. Lu Chuang is like a deceptive demon, teaching little Peter, knowledge can enrich people's thinking and make people smarter. After we acquire knowledge, we only need to think about it to solve many problems that we didn't know before. Problems, but more importantly the skills to apply the knowledge. Little Peter was confused and asked, "What is the skill of using knowledge?" Aunt May smiled and did not interrupt them. In her opinion, Lu Chuang's words were just under the guise of a superhero, trying to encourage little Peter to study hard and improve every day. What a kind and good person he is. For example, through the knowledge you have learned, create a super battle suit that can go to heaven and earth, and put lightsaber and beam rifles in it, so that you can become a real superhero. Like him, the bad guys won't dare to bully you anymore. Lu Chuang pointed to black youths as an example. Black youth. Is it necessary to use something like a lightsaber to deal with me? Google. Little Peter swallowed, imagining himself as a superhero, wearing a super battle suit to defeat bad guys. Immediately afterwards, he couldn't wait to ask, "But, what should I do to create a powerful super battle suit?" This is simple. I have a set of superhero crash methods here, which are very effective. Lu Chuang blushed without panting, and opened his mouth to talk nonsense. First of all, we have to lay a good foundation and expand your knowledge reserve, otherwise you won't even be able to understand the blueprint, let alone make a super battle suit. Gone. Drawing. That's not the point. The point is that you need to have a goal. The genius inventor Tony Stark knows. Yeah, I know him. He can make circuit boards at the age of 4, an engine at the age of 6, and graduate with the highest grades from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology at the age of 17. He is a genius in the whole world. He can achieve such achievements. It's all thanks to his smart brain and rich knowledge reserves. Lu Chuang looked at little Peter, and said with an encouraging tone, "In my opinion, you already have a smart brain, so now you just need to reserve enough knowledge, and I believe that one day in the future, you will overtake Tony Stark and be smarter than him." Little Peter understands that he lacks knowledge reserves, and he can't make a super battle suit, nor can he be a superhero. He asked anxiously, "Then what should I do?" Lu Chuang showed a sincere smile. "It just so happens that I have a sea of question tactics from the mysterious East here. You are still young, so we don't need to be too anxious. At the beginning, let's do 1,000 exercises first." Aunt May. Why does she feel that Lu Chuang seems to be playing for real? "I'm going to do exercises, I'm going to make a super battle suit, I'm going to be a superhero." Peter Parker, who was only 7 years old, shouted with high spirits and raised his arms. Until Aunt May picked him up and threw him into a car parked by the side of the road. Peter, you can take your time to become a superhero, but you have a more important task now, which is to go to school quickly, or you will be late. Quote. I see, Aunt May. Aunt May did not suppress little Peter's unrealistic ideas. Anyway, they are all children's naive fantasies. If little Peter is really willing to learn, she would be too happy, and how could she take the initiative to dampen the child's interest? Aunt May turned to look at Lu Chuang. She remembered that she did not know the name of this new neighbor. My name is Lu Chuang, just call me Lu. Lu Chuang laughed. All right Lu, there is something I want to trouble you with. Aunt May pointed to the black young man who collapsed on the ground, and said, I called the police, but it took a while for the police to arrive. I'm worried that he will do something crazy. Understood, I'll give you a few more kicks to make sure he won't get up before the police arrive. Hearing Lu Chuang's words, the face of the black young man pretending to be dead turned black. Oh no, it got even darker. If this kicks his Achilles heel a few more times, there are only two possibilities: either he will not be able to get up in the future, or he will not be able to get up in the future. Aunt May was also taken aback, and quickly waved her hands and said, No, you misunderstood. I mean, can you stay here for a while, and wait until the police come? Lu Chuang was a little disappointed. Well, I'm fine, but don't you really think about my suggestion? I think this guy is quite vicious, and when the time comes, robbery with a knife might be upgraded to robbery and murder. If he wants to resist, kick him. The black youth lay on the ground and continued to pretend to be dead. He couldn't get up, and no matter who called him, it didn't work. Definitely, no one at the scene paid attention to him. Aunt May is a talkative person and chatting with Lu Chuang was quick. Not long after, a police car drove in, and two white police officers got out of it. They looked at the two people who were chatting, and then at the black youth lying on the ground with pain on his face. Without further ado, directly arrest the black youth who did not make any resistance. A white policeman said to Aunt May, Madam, please rest assured that we have arrested this vicious gangster. Black youth. As expected of an American police officer, with such precise eyesight, he can immediately determine who is a criminal. Lu Chuang sighed secretly, and then he and Aunt May cooperated with the police to make a simple statement. Without further investigation, the black youth was taken into the police car by two police officers, and Aunt May did not stop, and thanked Lu Chuang again. After that, she drove little Peter to school. Lu Chuang returned to his house, opened the iron gate outside the garage, and took out the motorcycle from inside. He's going to have breakfast. By the way, buy exercises for little Peter. It has been a week since Lu Chuang moved into his home. In addition to Lu Chuang himself, he has recently added a permanent member to his family. That is little Peter from Aunt May's family. After that shot, Aunt May visited once because she wanted to say hello to her new neighbor. This is not referring to Lu Chuang, but Lu Chuang's parents. When Aunt May knew that Lu Chuang was still a high school student, she definitely thought that Lu Chuang was living with her parents. As a result, after Aunt May came to visit, Aunt May found out that Lu Chuang lived alone. According to Lu Chuang, his parents are no longer in this world. After knowing that Lu Chuang has no parents, Aunt May may have thought of her little Peter, or because of the sensibility of a woman, so she invited Lu Chuang to her home for dinner several times, and Lu Chuang was not polite, and continued to chat for several times. After a meal, he took advantage of the opportunity and gave the collection of exercises he bought to little Peter in one go. After going back and forth, the two sides quickly became acquainted. Especially little Peter, who often came to play with Lu Chuang. Aunt May has no objection to this. After all, she has a good impression of Lu Chuang. Although she sometimes says something strange, she is generally a trustworthy young man. Moreover, she is really busy at ordinary times, and she has no time to accompany little Peter at home, and little Peter has no friends of the same age to play with. She is worried that if little Peter continues like this, his personality will become more and more withdrawn, which will make him and Lu Chuang more contact as a good thing, as long as Lu Chuang doesn't find it annoying. Regarding Aunt May's concerns, Lu Chuang patted his chest and said there was no problem. As a result, little Peter can often be seen having fun at Lu Chuang's house. What's in here? Inside, little Peter asked, pointing to the closed door of the garage. These days, He often saw Lu Chuang walk into the garage and stay there for hours, and he could hear various strange sounds coming from inside from time to time. He was very curious about what Lu Chuang was doing inside. Lu Chuang sat on the sofa, drank happy fat house water, and said casually, "That's Superhero's studio." Little Peter blinked, seemingly unresponsive. A few seconds later, he asked with a blank expression, "So, you are a superhero?" Lu Chuang did not speak, but showed a mysterious smile. Seeing Lu Chuang acting like a master, little Peter instantly recognized that Lu Chuang is the kind of superhero hidden among ordinary people in comics, and immediately jumped up excitedly, "Oh my god! You are actually a superhero, no wonder you were able to defeat that villain last time." Little Peter, you know, in the eyes of superhero, that kind of bastard is nothing at all. Lu Chuang curled his lips in disdain, grabbed the toy gun that had been prepared by his side, raised his hand seemingly casually and fired. Little Peter took a closer look and saw a suction cup bullet firmly stuck to the wall. There are still 5 meters away from the flying dart's target next to it. Quote. Little Peter fell silent suddenly. Noticing Little Peter's suspicious gaze, Lu Chuang said cheerfully, "Go over and check the bullets." The bullet just stopped at a height within the reach of Little Peter, and Little Peter walked over obediently, and pulled out the suction cup bullet with some difficulty. The next moment, Little Peter stared wide-eyed, looking at the sucker in disbelief. "I saw a fly stuck on the suction cup, and it was still alive. It looked like a bullet just hit the fly flying in the air and fixed it on the wall." "Okay, that's great. Is this your super ability?" Seeing such a miraculous scene, the Little Peter was stunned, and he was convinced of Lu Chuang's superhero status. "Definitely not super ability." Turning off the bullet time of the same lock, Lu Chuang said righteously, "I can have such a super high shooting technique, relying on hard work and ability, both are indispensable." Little Peter's eyes flashed gold. "Then can I also learn such a powerful shooting and become a superhero?" Ahem. Lu Chuang almost spit out the coke in his mouth. "You are the future Spider-Man, what do you learn to shoot? Do you want to kill the villain with one shot and leave work early?" He quickly stabilized his emotions, and continued to maintain the face of an expert. "As I said, hard work and ability are indispensable. With all due respect, I don't see the ability to shoot in you." Hearing that he didn't have the ability to shoot, Little Peter was a little disappointed, but then Lu Chuang spoke again. "Although you don't have the shooting ability, I see other abilities in you." "What ability?" There was a turning point in the matter, and Little Peter was suddenly excited. Lu Chuang didn't answer, but suddenly asked, "Have you finished the exercises I gave you a few days ago?" The Little Peter was crying for a moment. "No, there are too many questions, and I only did half of them." "Half done." Lu Chuang was a little surprised. He specially bought the pile of exercises according to the difficulty of Little Peter's age. He just wanted to stimulate the other party's desire to learn, but he didn't expect Little Peter to do it. It seems that I still underestimated the IQ of Little Peter. Little Peter is young, but after several days of observation, Lu Chuang can see that this child is very smart. Especially in Peter's eyes, since he was a child, Lu Chuang saw the most innocent yearning for knowledge. Although the other party was only fooled by him, Lu Chuang was deeply moved by this innocence. He felt he had to do something for the kid. Although there are many versions of Spider-Man, judging from the performance of each version, Spider-Man is a genius-level existence, and its IQ is definitely higher than most people. For such a genius, age does not become an obstacle to their acquisition of knowledge. Take a look at Princess Shuri in Black Panther. She can manufacture various high-tech equipment and weapons in her teens, and also serves as Wakanda's chief scientific advisor. Her technological level is not weaker than that of Tony Stark. Definitely, this is not to say that Tony Stark's IQ is not as good as that of a little girl, but in comparison, Shuri was born in Wakanda, the world's top technological power, so her vision and knowledge are naturally much wider, and she may make missiles in the eyes of the other party. The difficulty is about the same as making an engine. In the same way, Lu Chuang believes that as long as Little Peter improves his foresight and knowledge, he will soon be promoted to become a technological genius. After he becomes Spider-Man, he will be a superhero who can truly stand on his own, instead of just living in the shadow of Iron Man, the little Spider-Man underneath. Lu Chuang was so excited that he couldn't add more excitement. he made up this story so much that he believed it himself. For tool people, ah no, for future superheroes. He is willing to devote himself to education and become an excellent gardener. Let's start with cultivating little Peter first. Very good, it seems that you already have the basic requirements of a superhero. Lu Chuang nodded in relief, and said, remember what I said before, I said that you have a smart brain, maybe you can't shoot a precise bullet, but you can make a bullet with your own knowledge. A super battle suit that can automatically aim, and this is your real ability. Tony Stark made engines at the age of 6. Your little Peter started making super battle suits at the age of 7. He drove a spaceship to explore the universe at the age of 10. He drove a Gundam to beat Thanos at the age of 15. You have to tell Tony Stark about his achievements. Stark was scared to death on the spot. Although little Peter didn't know what Gundam was, and he didn't know who Thanos was and why he wanted to hit him, but it didn't prevent little Peter from fantasizing at all, and a trace of saliva slowly flowed from the corner of his mouth. All the motivation for people to live comes from desire, and the same is true for learning. After repeated hints from Lu Chuang, in little Peter's heart, becoming a superhero and making a super battle suit have already been equated. To become a superhero, you must first make a super battle suit. After a long time, little Peter finally regained his senses from the fantasy, and struggled, but, I can't think of how to make a powerful super battle suit. Don't worry, I have a solution for this. I will find you a blueprint for making a super battle suit in a few days. Lu Chuang narrowed his eyes, and patted little Peter on the shoulder. But, first of all, you have to understand the blueprints, such as physics and chemistry, right? Well, I have prepared 30 pieces for you. You don't have to be polite to me, just take and read the textbooks and exercises that weigh more than a kilogram. 30 caddies. Little Peter was dumbfounded, he was smart enough to know the weight of this unit of mass. This is more than half of his weight. Lu Chuang straightened his face. Little Peter, you have to know that becoming a superhero is definitely not an easy task. You have to learn more from my strengths, such as hard work and persistence. But, 30 caddies is too much. What are you thinking? It's not for you to learn it all at once. These books are all advanced. Now you just need to start from the simplest basics, and then frantically brush up the questions. If you don't understand the questions, just read the books and understand them. Just keep writing questions. Seeing Peter's terrified appearance, Lu Chuang comforted him, you have to remember that knowledge is power. Whenever you learn something new, it means that you become stronger. You can imagine this process, the training process of becoming a superhero. After you complete all the training, it means that you have become a real superhero. Lu Chuang's words really made little Peter feel better. He swallowed hard, his voice trembling, I want to be a superhero. Well, but there is one thing I want to remind you. Only the two of us know about this matter. My superhero identity must never be revealed, and the superhero training process must also not be revealed, understand? Understood. Little Peter nodded. Lu Chuang grinned. Little Peter, you have to quietly become stronger. I believe that in the near future, you will definitely be able to scare everyone to death, amaze everyone. Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe.